Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. Mark's eyes snapped open, his heart racing. The bed beside him was cold, empty. He bolted upright, scanning the dimly lit bedroom. "Nira!" he called out, his voice cracking. No response. He stumbled out of bed, checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room. Nothing. No note, no message, no sign of struggle. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Mark's mind reeled. How could she just leave? After 8 years together, after Leia. His heart clenched. How was he going to explain this to their daughter? As if on cue, a small voice piped up from the hallway. "Dad? Where's Mom?" Mark turned to see Leia standing there, her blue skin practically glowing in the early morning light. Her large violet eyes were wide with confusion and concern. He swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Hey, sweetheart. Mom had to go away for a while, but don't worry, okay? Everything's going to be fine." Leia's lower lip trembled. But why didn't she say goodbye? Mark knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. "I don't know, honey. I don't know." Days turned into weeks. Mark threw himself into his work at the engineering firm, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy for Leia's sake. But the whispers and stares were becoming impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as Mark picked Leia up from school, he noticed a group of parents huddled together, shooting furtive glances their way. "There they are," one woman hissed, not bothering to lower her voice. "I told you, it's not natural. That child isn't human." "Heard the mother took off," another chimed in. "Can't say I blame her." Mark's jaw clenched. He gripped Leia's hand tighter, quickening their pace to the car. "Dad?" Leia's voice was small. "Why don't the other kids want to play with me anymore?" Mark's heart shattered. He knelt down, looking into her eyes. "Some people are just afraid of what they don't understand, sweetheart. But that's their problem, not yours. You're perfect exactly as you are." Leia nodded, but her eyes were filled with doubt. That night, a sharp knock at the door jolted Mark awake. He glanced at the clock, 2:37 a.m. His stomach twisted as he approached the door, peering through the peephole. 2 men in dark suits stood outside, their expressions grim. Government agents. Mark's pulse quickened. He opened the door a crack, keeping the chain in place. "Can I help you?" The taller agent flashed a badge. "Mr. Reeves? We're with the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. We need to speak with you about your daughter." Mark's blood ran cold. "It's the middle of the night. This isn't appropriate." The shorter agent's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Reeves, I'm sure you understand the unique nature of your situation. It would be in everyone's best interest if you cooperated." "Come back with a warrant," Mark growled, slamming the door shut. He leaned against it, heart pounding. This was escalating faster than he'd feared. The next morning, Mark sat Leia down for a serious talk. "Honey, remember how we practice keeping your emotions under control?" Leia nodded solemnly. "Because sometimes when I get upset, weird things happen." "That's right," Mark said gently. "It's more important than ever that you try to stay calm, okay? No matter what anyone says or does." But children can be cruel, and Leia's unique appearance made her an easy target. A week later, Mark received a frantic call from the school. He arrived to find chaos. The entire building's electrical system had shorted out. In the center of it all stood Leia, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by a faint blue glow. "They wouldn't stop," she sobbed as Mark scooped her up. "They called me a freak, said I should go back to my own planet. I didn't mean to, Dad. I'm sorry." Mark held her close, his mind racing. This was the final straw. They couldn't stay here any longer. That night, after Leia had finally fallen asleep, Mark made a series of rapid-fire calls. He liquidated their assets, called in every favor he was owed. By morning, he had secured an old freighter, the Wanderer, and enough supplies to get them off-world. As he packed their belongings, a wave of guilt washed over him. Was he doing the right thing, uprooting Leia from everything she'd ever known? But then he remembered the fear in her eyes, the hostility of their neighbors, the government agents at their door. No, Earth wasn't safe for them anymore. And maybe, just maybe, they'd find answers about Nira out there among the stars. Dawn was breaking as Mark gently shook Leia awake. "Time to go, sweetheart. We're going on an adventure." Leia rubbed her eyes, confused. "Where are we going?" Mark managed a small smile. "To find your mom, and to find a place where you can be yourself without having to hide or be afraid." As they boarded the Wanderer, Leia clutched her favorite stuffed animal tightly. "Dad, are you scared?" Mark paused, then nodded. "A little. But you know what? It's okay to be scared sometimes. The important thing is that we're together." The ship's engines roared to life. Through the view screen, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another twinkling light in the vast expanse of space. Mark took a deep breath, setting course for the unknown. "Hold on tight, kiddo. Our adventure's just beginning." The first few days aboard the Wanderer were a whirlwind of activity. Mark threw himself into retrofitting the old freighter, transforming cramped cargo holds into livable spaces. Leia trailed after him, her natural curiosity momentarily outweighing her sadness at leaving Earth. "Dad, what does this do?" she asked, pointing to a panel of blinking lights. Mark grinned. "That's part of the life support system. It makes sure we have air to breathe and keeps the temperature just right." Leia's eyes widened. "Like a big space house." "Exactly," Mark chuckled. "And look over here. This is going to be your room." He led her to a small chamber he'd outfitted with a bunk, some storage compartments, and a desk. On the wall, he'd mounted a holo projector that could display different planetary landscapes. Leia's face lit up. "It's perfect." For a moment, Mark allowed himself to hope. Maybe this crazy plan could work after all. But as the novelty wore off, reality began to set in. The vastness of space was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Mark found himself lying awake at night, doubts gnawing at him. What if they never found Nira? What if something happened to the ship? How could he possibly keep Leia safe out here? One evening, as they sat in the makeshift galley eating reconstituted meals, Leia pushed her food around listlessly. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Mark asked. "Not hungry?" Leia shrugged. "I miss my friends, and Grandma and Grandpa. When are we going back home?" Mark's heart clenched. "Leia, Earth isn't our home anymore. I know it's hard to understand, but we had to leave to keep you safe." "Because I'm a freak," Leia muttered, her lower lip trembling. "Hey," Mark said sharply, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You are not a freak. You're special. And someday, we're going to find a place where everyone sees that." Leia nodded, but Mark could see the doubt in her eyes. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "How about we do something fun after dinner? We could watch one of those old Earth movies you like." A small smile tugged at Leia's lips. "Can we watch the one with the singing ice princess again?" Mark groaned good-naturedly. "If we must. But I get to pick next time." As they settled in to watch the film, Leia curled up against Mark's side. He wrapped an arm around her, marveling at how small and vulnerable she felt. In that moment, he silently renewed his vow to protect her, no matter the cost. Weeks passed as they drifted through the star systems nearest to Earth. Mark had heard rumors of an Ilariosan outpost on a remote moon, but so far, their search had turned up nothing but dead ends. One afternoon, as Mark was running diagnostics on the ship's propulsion system, a proximity alarm blared through the Wanderer. He rushed to the cockpit, heart racing. A massive ship loomed before them, easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer. Its sleek design was unlike anything Mark had ever seen. "Dad?" Leia's voice quavered as she joined him at the view screen. "What is that?" Before Mark could answer, a crackling voice came through the ship's comm system. The language was unfamiliar, a series of musical tones and clicks. We come in peace," Mark tried, fumbling with the controls. "We're just passing through, no trouble here." The alien ship's response was immediate. A shimmering energy field enveloped the Wanderer, cutting power to all systems. Panic rose in Mark's throat as the larger vessel began to pull them in. He turned to Leia, whose eyes were wide with fear. "It's going to be okay," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we stick together, all right?" Leia nodded, clutching his hand tightly as the Wanderer was swallowed up by the alien ship's docking bay. Mark's mind raced. Had they finally found a lead to Nira and Ilarios? Or had they just jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire? As the docking bay doors sealed shut behind them, one thing was clear. Their lives were about to change forever. The docking bay hissed as it depressurized. Mark stood protectively in front of Leia, his heart hammering against his ribcage. The Wanderer's hatch opened with a groan, revealing a trio of towering metallic figures. "Greetings, travelers," the central figure intoned, its voice a melodious hum. "I am Zontor of the Celestial Concordat. We detected your vessel's primitive warp signature and grew curious." Mark swallowed hard. "We mean no harm. We're just looking for information about—" Zontor raised a silvery appendage. "All will be addressed in due time. Please, follow us." As they were led through gleaming corridors, Leia tugged at Mark's sleeve. "Dad," she whispered, "I can feel them. They're excited, but also worried." Mark blinked in surprise. Leia's empathic abilities were growing stronger by the day. The Celestials, as they called themselves, turned out to be scholars and explorers. They were fascinated by Leia's unique genetic makeup and offered to help Mark in his search for answers about Nira and Ilarios. "Your timing is fortuitous," Xantor explained as they gathered in a vast observatory. "We are en route to the Andromeda Conference, a gathering of species from across known space. Perhaps you will find the answers you seek there." Mark hesitated. It seemed too good to be true. "And what do you want in return?" Xantor's eye clusters pulsed. "Merely the opportunity to study your daughter's abilities. Nothing invasive, I assure you." Leia looked up at Mark, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. He sighed. "We'll think about it." The Andromeda Conference was a sensory overload. Thousands of alien species mingled in a massive space station, sharing knowledge and trading goods. Mark kept a tight grip on Leia's hand as they navigated the crowded corridors. "Remember," he cautioned, "stick close to me, and if you start feeling overwhelmed—" "I know, Dad," Leia interrupted, rolling her eyes. "Deep breaths and focus on my center, just like we practiced." Mark couldn't help but smile. Despite everything, she was growing up so fast. As they explored, they encountered beings of all shapes and sizes. Some recoiled at the sight of Leia, while others approached with fascination. Mark found himself constantly on edge, ready to whisk her away at the first sign of danger. One afternoon, as they were examining a stall of exotic fruits, a commotion erupted nearby. A group of reptilian creatures had cornered a small, furry alien. "Thief!" one of the reptilians hissed. "You'll pay for your deceit." Without thinking, Leia broke free from Mark's grasp and ran towards the confrontation. "Stop!" she cried, positioning herself between the groups. Mark's heart leapt into his throat. "Leia, no!" But it was too late. As the reptilians advanced, Leia's eyes began to glow. A wave of calm washed over the area, causing the aggressors to stumble back in confusion. What is this?" one of them growled. Leia's voice was steady. "You're angry and scared, but hurting others won't fix that. Please just talk to each other." To Mark's amazement, the tension dissipated. The reptilians and the furry alien began to converse, working out their misunderstanding. As the crowd dispersed, Mark rushed to Leia's side. "That was incredibly dangerous," he scolded, even as pride swelled in his chest. Leia beamed up at him. "But it worked, Dad. I think I'm getting better at controlling it." Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Just warn me next time, okay?" As word of Leia's abilities spread, they found themselves inundated with visitors. Some offered friendship and guidance, while others had more nefarious intentions. One evening, as they prepared for bed in their temporary quarters, a sharp knock echoed through the room. Mark tensed, reaching for the makeshift weapon he kept hidden. "Who is it?" he called out. A female voice responded, its cadence hauntingly familiar. "Someone who can help you find what you're looking for." Mark opened the door a crack, revealing a slender, blue-skinned woman. His breath caught in his throat. She looked so much like Nira. "My name is Zara," the woman said, her eyes darting nervously down the hallway. "I'm from Ilarios, and I think we need to talk." Mark hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. Leia emerged from her room, eyes wide with curiosity. Zara's gaze softened as she saw the girl. "Oh, little one, you look so much like your mother." Leia's face lit up. "You knew my mom? Where is she? Why did she leave us?" Mark put a comforting hand on Leia's shoulder. "Let's hear what Zara has to say first, okay?" Zara took a deep breath. "I wish I had better news. Ilarios. It's in the middle of a civil war. Your mother, Nira, she's one of the rebel leaders." Mark's mind reeled. A war. But why didn't she tell me? Why leave us behind? Zara's expression was pained. "To protect you both. The government of Ilarios, they're not kind to those they see as traitors. If they knew about Leia—" She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Leia would be seen as a valuable asset or a dangerous threat. Mark's jaw clenched. "So what now? We can't just sit here while Nira's in danger." Zara nodded. "That's why I'm here. I'm part of a network smuggling supplies to the rebels. I can get you to Ilarios, but it won't be easy or safe." Leia tugged at Mark's sleeve. "Dad, we have to go. We have to help Mom." Mark knelt down, looking into his daughter's determined eyes. "Leia, this isn't a game. It could be very dangerous." "I know," she said solemnly, "but I'm not afraid. We're stronger together, remember?" Mark's chest tightened with a mixture of pride and fear. He turned to Zara. "When do we leave?" The journey to Ilarios was fraught with peril. They narrowly escaped detection by government patrols, relying on Zara's expertise and Leia's growing abilities to slip past checkpoints. During quiet moments on Zara's cramped smuggling vessel, Mark found himself opening up to her. She listened patiently as he recounted his life with Nira, the joy of Leia's birth, and the pain of abandonment. "Nira never wanted to leave you," Zara assured him one night as they shared a meal of bland rations. "But the cause, it consumed her. She believed that by fighting she was securing a better future for Leia." Mark's hand tightened around his cup. "And what about Leia's present? These past months, watching her struggle, feeling like an outsider." Zara reached out, hesitantly placing her hand on his. "You've done an incredible job, Mark. Leia is strong, compassionate, and brave. That's because of you." Their eyes met, and for a moment Mark felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in years. He quickly looked away, guilt gnawing at him. As they approached Ilarios, Leia's powers continued to manifest in surprising ways. She could now manipulate small objects with her mind and project her emotions onto others. "Dad, look!" she exclaimed one day, levitating a wrench across the engine room. Mark watched with a mixture of awe and concern. "That's amazing, sweetheart. But remember what we talked about. We need to be careful about who sees what you can do." Leia's face fell. "I know. I wish I didn't have to hide all the time." Mark pulled her into a hug. "I know, kiddo. I hope someday you won't have to." Their moment was interrupted by Zara's urgent voice over the intercom. "We've got company! Government cruiser on an intercept course." Mark's heart raced as he rushed to the cockpit, Leia close behind. Through the view screen, he could see a massive warship bearing down on them. "Can we outrun them?" he asked, strapping himself in. Zara's hands flew over the controls. "Not a chance. Our only hope is to lose them in the shattered moons." As they plunged into a dense field of asteroid fragments, laser fire erupted around them. The ship shuddered with each near miss. "Dad," Leia's voice was barely a whisper. "I think I can help." Before Mark could protest, Leia closed her eyes in concentration. The air around her began to shimmer with a faint blue light. Suddenly, the pursuing ship's weapons went silent. Zara gasped in disbelief. "Their systems. They're completely offline." Taking advantage of the confusion, Zara piloted them deeper into the asteroid field. Within minutes, they had lost their pursuers. As the adrenaline faded, Mark turned to Leia. She sat slumped in her chair, exhausted but smiling weakly. "I did it, Dad," she murmured before drifting off to sleep. Mark brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart swelling with a complex mixture of emotions: pride, fear, love, and the growing realization that his little girl was becoming something far beyond what he could have ever imagined. As Ilarios loomed before them, Mark steeled himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. For Leia's sake, for Neera's, he had to be ready for anything. As Zara's ship descended through Ilarios's swirling atmosphere, Mark's grip tightened on Leia's hand. The planet's surface came into view, a patchwork of lush forests and gleaming cities, marred by scorch marks and ruins. "We'll have to land outside the capital," Zara explained, her voice tense. "The rebels control most of the outlying regions, but the government still holds the city center." They touched down in a secluded valley cloaked by dense foliage. As they disembarked, a group of blue-skinned figures emerged from the trees, weapons raised. "Stand down," Zara called out. "I've brought them." The leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes widening as they fell on Leia. "By the moons," he breathed. "It's true. Neera's child." Mark instinctively pulled Leia closer. "Where is Neera? We need to see her." The rebel's expression darkened. "Follow me. There's much to discuss." They were led to a hidden base carved into the side of a mountain. As they walked through bustling corridors, Mark noticed the mix of determination and exhaustion on the faces around them. This was a people pushed to their limits. In a dimly lit strategy room, they were introduced to the rebel leadership. An older woman with intricate facial markings stepped forward. "I am Kayla, second in command of the Resistance," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "Neera has told us much about you, Mark, and you, young Leia, you are the embodiment of hope for our people." Mark's patience wore thin. "Where is Neera? Why isn't she here?" Kayla exchanged a glance with Zara before continuing. "Neera was captured during a raid on a government facility 3 cycles ago. We've been unable to rescue her." The words hit Mark like a physical blow. Leia's grip on his hand tightened, her eyes filling with tears. "Then we'll get her out," Mark declared, his voice steely with determination. Kayla shook her head. "It's not that simple. The facility where she's held is impenetrable. We've lost good people trying." Leia stepped forward, her small frame radiating an unexpected strength. "I can help. My powers. I can use them." The room fell silent, all eyes on the young girl. Kayla knelt down to Leia's level. Child, do you understand the danger? The government would stop at nothing to capture you if they knew what you could do. Leia's chin jutted out defiantly. I'm not afraid. Mom needs us. Mark's heart swelled with pride and fear. He knew there would be no talking her out of this. If we do this, he said to Kayla, we do it together, as a family. Kayla nodded solemnly. Very well. We'll begin planning immediately. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Mark threw himself into learning about Ilariosan technology and tactics, while Leia worked with the rebels to hone her abilities. One evening, as Mark pored over facility schematics, Zara approached him. You should rest, she said softly. You're no good to anyone if you're exhausted. Mark rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of sleepless nights. I can't. Every moment we waste. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder. Nira is strong. She'll hold on until we get there. Their eyes met, and for a moment the tension between them crackled with unspoken possibilities. Mark cleared his throat, looking away. Thank you, Zara, for everything. She smiled sadly. Get some rest, Mark. Tomorrow, we change the course of history. The plan was daring, bordering on suicidal. Using Leia's abilities to disable the facility's defenses, a small team would infiltrate and extract Nira. Mark insisted on being part of the strike force, despite Kayla's objections. As they prepared to move out, Mark knelt before Leia. Remember, stay close to Zara. If anything goes wrong, it won't, Leia interrupted, her jaw set with determination. We're going to save Mom and come back together. I can feel it. Mark pulled her into a fierce hug, blinking back tears. I love you, kiddo, more than anything in this universe. I love you too, Dad, Leia whispered. The mission began under the cover of darkness. Leia, concealed in a transport with Zara and a protective detail, used her powers to systematically disable the facility's security systems. Mark and the strike team moved in, encountering surprisingly little resistance. As they fought their way deeper into the complex, alarms began to blare. They've detected the intrusion, Kayla's voice crackled over the comm. You need to move faster. Mark's heart raced as they approached the detention level. They rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of heavily armed guards. Take cover, Mark yelled as energy blasts filled the air. The firefight was intense, but brief. As the last guard fell, Mark heard a familiar voice calling out weakly from one of the cells. Nira, he gasped, rushing forward. She was there, battered and bruised but alive. As the cell door slid open, their eyes met. Mark, she breathed. You came. Before he could respond, the facility shook with a massive explosion. Kayla's frantic voice came through the comm. They found Leia. We're under heavy attack. Mark's blood ran cold. He turned to Nira, torn between the woman he'd searched for across the galaxy and the daughter who needed him. Nira's eyes flashed with determination. Go, save our daughter. I'll be right behind you. With a quick nod, Mark sprinted back the way they'd come, his heart pounding in his ears. He emerged from the facility to find chaos. Rebel and government forces clashed in the sky and on the ground. In the distance, he could see Leia's transport surrounded by enemy troops. A blue glow emanated from the vehicle, growing stronger by the second. Suddenly, a shockwave of energy burst forth, disabling every piece of technology in its path. Government ships fell from the sky, weapons went silent. In the eerie quiet that followed, Mark ran towards the transport. Leia, he called out desperately. The door opened and Leia stumbled out, supported by Zara. Her skin was pale, her breathing labored, but her eyes were bright with triumph. Dad, she managed weakly. I did it. I saved everyone. Mark gathered her in his arms, his vision blurring with tears of relief and pride. You sure did, sweetheart. You sure did. The aftermath of the battle was chaotic. With their technology crippled and their leader captured, the government forces quickly surrendered. The rebels found themselves thrust into the role of rebuilding a fractured world. Amidst the celebrations, Mark received the news he'd been dreading. Nira hadn't made it out of the facility. She'd sacrificed herself to ensure the others could escape, using her own powers to collapse the building on top of the remaining government forces. As he broke the news to Leia, Mark braced himself for her grief. But instead of tears, he saw a quiet determination in her eyes. "Mom knew what she was fighting for," Leia said softly. "And now, it's up to us to finish what she started." In the days that followed, as Ilarios began the long process of healing, Mark and Leia found themselves at a crossroads. They could return to Earth, to the life they'd left behind, or they could stay, helping to forge a new future for this world that was half of Leia's heritage. The decision, in the end, was an easy one. 5 years later, Mark stood on the balcony of their home in the Ilariosan capital, watching the twin suns sink below the horizon. The city below hummed with life, a testament to how far they'd come. "Dad," Leia's voice called from inside. "Zara says dinner's ready." Mark smiled, turning to see his now 12-year-old daughter. She'd grown so much, not just in height but in confidence and control of her abilities. She'd become a symbol of hope for the Ilariosan people, a bridge between two worlds. As they sat down to eat, Mark looked around the table. There was Zara, who'd become so much more than just an ally. There were friends they'd made among the rebels, now respected leaders in the new government. And there was Leia, her blue skin glowing in the fading light, her eyes bright with the promise of the future. It wasn't the life Mark had ever imagined for himself. There were still challenges, still moments of heartache when he thought of Nira and the sacrifices that had brought them here. But as he looked at his unusual, beautiful family, he knew they'd found where they truly belonged. Later that night, as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, Mark and Leia stood together on the balcony. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Leia asked, leaning against him. Mark considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I look around and see everything we've built here, everything you've accomplished, and I know we're exactly where we're meant to be." Leia smiled up at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "We're home, aren't we, Dad?" Mark pulled her close, his heart full. "Yeah, kiddo, we're home." As the first stars began to twinkle in the Ilariosan sky, Mark felt a sense of peace wash over him. Their journey had been long and fraught with danger, but it had led them here, to a place where they could be true to themselves, where Leia could grow into the extraordinary person she was meant to be. Whatever challenges the future held, they would face them together, a family forged across the stars, bound by love, sacrifice, and the endless possibilities of the universe.